Well, I'll tell you what we always tried to do here in Florida is cross train. So if I want to be a sergeant, I need to know my job, but I need to know all the jobs. So we always try to have our officers work in the dormitory, give them a chance to work in transportation because we have to transport inmates to court. We have to transport inmates to other prisons and other jails. We wanted our officers to work in bookend when I was at the jail. We wanted them to work, and we would give them assignments. In other words, hey, you're not a sergeant, but let me give you an assignment. By doing that, we're empowering the officer to do something meaningful, but we're also giving that officer confidence and letting them know we trust them. That's the way I feel. When you give them a job that's meaningful and they complete that task successfully, I've completed several obstacles in leadership. I've shown them that I trust them. I've given them a job to do. I've recognized that they did a good job and thanked them, but I've trained them at the same time by having them do crossover training. And I think before you become a sergeant in corrections, you need to know the entire job field within the prison or the jail.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to talk about with ILEETA and us bringing corrections into the fold is the skills that are needed inside are very much the same. And a good trainer, a good law enforcement trainer is needed as a good correctional trainer, and there's not that much difference. If you're a good firearms trainer, in law enforcement, you're a good firearms trainer in corrections, and they can learn from each other. I know that, you know, I was a little bit of the exception. I think corrections doesn't always do objective driven training. Sometimes we just do it to check the box, like something goes wrong at the institution and something ethically. Well, we'll have an ethics class, but we'll talk about policy. Well, lack of policy knowledge probably wasn't what drove the problem, right? So we do a lot of that check the box stuff. And I pretty early in my career decided, well, and I'll tell you, it was an ILEETA member, and I got to talk to him this year for the first time at the conference, Jim Glennon. And I paid my own money, went outside the prison, went to a class. I was the only correctional officer sitting there with a bunch of cops, and went to one of his classes. And he really opened my eyes to what training could be. And so I started modeling myself after the trainers that I was seeing in law enforcement, and spent a lot of money. Every year my wife was really good and she'd send me, here, you can go to this training, you can go to this training. So I'd pick something that was totally away from work. And it made me very valuable at work. One, because I had skills and knowledge that I learned from outside of what everybody else was learning. And two, it gave me drive, and I worked every day to become a good instructor and a good trainer. And I know I'm talking a little long-winded here, but here's one of the most important things I want to say about correctional training. As a correctional officer, I don't get to go out with my buddies to McDonald's once in a while. I don't get to go do that stuff. The only opportunity I have to get out of that housing unit or that seg unit or whatever is when I get 8 hours of training. And to be able to go out there and network and talk and learn as a correctional trainer, that is such a high level that you need to bring to class.